The first three sentences. Strong hook. That day, I was taking a few photos to list my house when blue and red lights flicked on right there on the gravel drive. Two county cruisers swung in, like I'd just slipped into a restricted zone on my own land. I handed over my license. The address on the card matched the big white mailbox out by the gate, and my throat still burned like someone was telling me I had to prove I deserved to be where I'd sweated over every plank. Through the hedge, I saw Denise Caldwell, the HOA president of Reefview Shores, standing behind her curtain arms, folded like she'd already scored me in her head, and I knew exactly who had picked up the phone. My name is Mason Keller, 44. I live in Harbor Pine, North Carolina, a waterfront town that wakes to the damp smell of pine and the sound of waves tapping boat hulls. I'm a logistics ops coordinator. Late trucks, messy orders me keeping everything on the rails. So home has to be the place I can breathe. I bought this place 14 years ago. When the roof leaked, the dock wobbled, the fence leaned, and my hands were split open from weekend sawdust. But I was happy anyway. My mom used to sit on this porch with iced tea and smile like I'd built her a whole horizon. So when the officer asked me what I was doing there, you know that feeling it wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was like someone opening your kitchen cabinet and asking whether you're allowed to take your own cup. Denise is the kind of person who carries the thick HOA book everywhere, highlighted tabbed red like a pocket Bible. She measures grass with a ruler, snaps photos of trash bins, to send emails once knocked on a neighbor's door, to measure an inflatable snowman, and declared it over the height limit. I avoid confrontation. I pay dues on time, repaint the porch, sit in the last row at meetings, and keep quiet. But some people, the quieter you are, the more they push. And at the last meeting, she talked about suspicious activity around the waterfront, didn't say a name. But the whole room looked at me. In my head, I heard my mom. Son, if people don't respect your boundaries, you set them firm. And that night, I sat on the porch, watched the water mirror the house lights along the shore, and felt something get touched in my chest. Not money or the sale, but dignity. I don't like arguing. I don't want drama. But if I get a chance to set things right, I won't let it pass. The chance came on a Thursday afternoon. I was scrolling new land listings and saw a sliver, a strip of grass straight down to the water, a small wooden dock. No house, nothing else. The address felt so familiar, my heart skipped. Denise's water access, her pride prop she brings to every meeting to lecture about waterfront value. That parcel was on this market sold separately, like she had set her queen in the middle of the board and believed no one would touch it. I called my agent Kim Valdez, need the file now, and I'm buying through an LLC. My name only appears when the ink is dry. Kim paused half a beat, then laughed. Yeah, that happened, and snapped right back into pro mode, locking in the steps. Next morning, I drove out, stood at the end of the dock, where she usually sipped at sunset. Wind sliding across freshly sanded planks, salt and pine in the air. And I felt like a crooked vertebra finally popped into place. Not revenge. Balance. We made a clean offer, not low, not crazy. And in that week of waiting, that felt like winter ice. Every buzz on my phone sent my heart up and down. Then Kim called, accepted closing next week. I didn't cheer. I poured a bourbon, watched the water breathe. And when Denise walked her poodle past with her chin high, I stayed quiet. Sometimes justice is just a piece of paper with a red stamp. That's all. Closing day pen down on the last signature. Kim tapped the stack that dock is yours. I drove straight there, stepped slow across each board, listened to that warm wooden creak, looked over the water toward my porch. I didn't feel giddy. I felt order sliding back into place. By late afternoon, Brakes squealed at my curb. Denise jumped out. Binder clamped like a shield pointed at me. It was you, wasn't it? You used a shell company to steal my water access. I set the pruning shears down and said, low and clear, you listed it, I offered, you signed. The HOA can't change a deed. She inhaled hard, tried to frame it as hostile, said the community wouldn't stand for it. I shrugged, didn't argue. Just dropped the facts like a pebble into the lake, neat and gone. The HOA meeting the next week was hot, like the room before a storm. Denise took the lectern cell clear. Voice flipped each tab like battle flags. Said a homeowner manipulated a transaction to strip a resident's water access. The room buzzed. Reggie, the neighbor she once scolded over wind chimes, raised his hand, a sale is a sale, no one forced anyone. Denise slapped the binder and started about shell companies and hidden identities. Marla fired back. Every lawyer tells you to buy through an LLC, and what do you call it when you summon cops to someone's lawn because they're taking listing photos? I stood up slowly when the cops came. I handed over papers and stood on the porch. I painted myself. You turned a routine thing into a public interrogation, and that parcel you listed it. I bought it. That's it. Mr. Pike on the board spoke, old voice but straight. Legally, the transaction stands. The HOA has no authority over ownership. A few claps turned into a wave. Denise tapped the gavel, but the wind in the room had already shifted. I sat down with my heartbeat steady, like a lighthouse, clicking back on after a heavy fog. After that, Reef View Shores looked like a chessboard. Half the folks nodded hello. The other half suddenly found the rose bushes fascinating whenever I walked by. Denise formed a community preservation circle. Sweet name, clear mission, and the rumor mill started sketching me as a legal thief. I didn't join the word war. I did normal things. Early shifts, watering the lawn, tying up the boat, grilling ribs with the neighbor crew. People who passed the new dock, my dock, often paused a beat, not out of nosiness, but because they caught the message you don't have to write down respect runs both ways. My nephew Colton asked if I had regrets, if this meant someone would hate me forever. I told him I'm not playing a winners and losers game, I'm just taking back my share. The plan to sell kept rolling. Only now I'd leave on my terms. No more feeling like I have to present my driver's license on my own porch every time I step outside. The day the listing went live. Kim tightened the copy. The photos looked bright, the dock like a painting, the porch shining. I stood in the empty living room, heard the soft thump of wood under my shoes, and all the summers of sweat, the winters of numb fingers, the storm nights, swapping boards came back. The HOA threw a season-end cookout, folks laughing, a little stiff country music looping, and some came to whisper, I went too far. Others shook my hand and said I did what they wish they'd had the guts to do. I nodded to both. Both are true in their own way. That night, me, Reggie, and Marla sat on the porch, watched the moon lay a thin silver road across the water. Marla said I wasn't a hero, but I reminded people of one thing. Respect isn't a gift. Reggie clinked his can. To knowing when enough is enough. I smiled small. To resetting a boundary by making it obvious. People ask if it was worth it to buy a tiny slice of land just to make someone walk a few extra minutes to the water. And honestly, if you measure it in steps, maybe not. But I don't measure in steps. I measure by the feeling you get when you step into your own yard and know you don't have to prove you're allowed to stand there at every time someone's annoyed. I sold the house a few weeks later. No flags. No banner, just a little note on the kitchen counter for the new owners. Replace the third plank from the end of the dock. It tends to squeak. Then I closed the door. I paused at the end of the street one last time. Denise was watering her irises. Looked up, gave a small nod. I nodded back. The kind of peace people share when they aren't friends, but aren't enemies either. I drove off, and what I carried wasn't a trophy. It was the lightness of someone who just set the axle on his life straight again. A satisfying end, with a provocative aftertaste. How you see it depends on the ruler you carry inside. Some will say, I dumped a bucket of ice water on a neighbor. Some will say, I did what needed doing to remind folks that the law is a beam we both stand under. I don't need you to agree with me. I just hope you won't accept being treated like a stranger on your own ground. You know what I mean. Call to action. If you were me, when a neighbor calls the cops to check you on your own lawn, what would you do? Let it slide or reset the boundary in a way no one can argue? Do you think I went too far or just far enough? Have you seen an HOA or any organization abused like that? Drop it in the comments. Right, wrong, justice bias, and the price of respect. And if you want more real, plain-spoken stories with a little bitter and a little sweet, hit subscribe and ring the bell.